gentlemen, boys and girls, you got your girl Beauty Ashley, aka Ryder Beauts, back with another trending topic. You never guess who I've got in the studio. Like, I'm so happy because I can relate. And this is the one and only Dawn
Xanklin.
Yeah, obviously I didn't want to say the name and get it wrong with my accent. But, I'm so happy to have you in the studio. I know that you're a stand-up comedian, storyteller, contest-winning public speaker from Ottawa, Canada. I know you also performed a lot, stand-up comedy since 2017. And the first you wrote about, can you explain more about that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I've done a lot. Actually, this weekend is going to be my my 8th year officially of doing stand-up comedy.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of celebrating it because this is the this past year, where I got my first grants. So I'm using part of a grant to fund a really big event at the Shankman Center on Friday, March 21st. That's East Ottawa. It's called In the Black. It's a showcase of a showcase of black comedians from different parts of Canada. They all have connections to different parts. Thank you. And so there's one from the Yukon. There's one from Alberta. There's one person from Toronto. One person in Toronto by way of Montreal, and the local comic other than me in the lineup, and it's going to be lit. It's going to be fantastic.
Okay, and I also saw that you were nominated for CBC Comedy Next Up Comedy competition. How was that? Did you like it?
That was really unexpected because that was like 2 years into doing stand-up comedy, just as 2 years, and as an amateur comic at that time. So I don't think I had been. Maybe I was paid for my first paid gig in that time.
Okay.
But someone had sent me a link to this contest. I uploaded a clip, and I was surprised. It was like a long list. So they had grabbed a couple of comics from across Canada to make this like first long list. And I think I was the only black woman from Ottawa in this selection. So it was a big deal. It was unexpected, and it was a really badly lit clip. So I'm glad they picked it.
Yeah, you're really, really busy. And then in 2020 to 2022, you hosted and co-hosted Ottawa storytelling. Yeah. So explain to me about that. How was that experience doing a storytelling? Because I know storytelling similar to stand-up comedy, but not necessarily funny.
Yeah. So for that, it was really great. The thing about me that isn't always true of other comics is I like different ways of connecting with an audience. So I got into stand-up after being part of Toastmasters, so that's the public speaking part. And then for storytelling, I always loved going to watch storytelling. So being able to volunteer, and then the pandemic hit, so the storytelling, instead of going to a coffee shop or a restaurant, we ended up going online. So that's what I was doing in the pandemic. The first 2 years of the pandemic, it was online. I was part of board of directors, so I learned a little bit about how the machine works, and I got to hear from so many people. And the show that I hosted and then co-hosted was called Untold. Yeah, and it was true personal stories from people. So they weren't necessarily professional storytellers, experienced storytellers, but they would come in, bring stories according to a theme, and talk about it for 7 minutes. And it was a great way of creating community when community was so hard to do.
Yeah, especially from home and stuff.
Exactly.
And then I saw that in 2021 that you was voted Ottawa's best comedian.
Yeah.
So how did you feel when you first heard about that?
I was shocked. I really thought that was the first year that I was nominated, and then my friend, a super popular comedian named Janelle Niles, was also nominated for the first time that year. And I did not expect to win. I thought it was going to be Janelle for sure, but it was also the idea of building an audience that believed in you, that voted for you, because you have to vote to nominate a comic for this list, for this category, and then you have to vote consistently for 30 days after that to get them to win. And I didn't realize that people liked the online stuff I was doing at that time that much to be able to support me. So that was really it was like a great vote of confidence.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you was a finalist in 2022.
Yeah, exactly. So I have 2 plaques on my wall, one that says winner and one that says finalist. And yeah, so it's really nice because sometimes, especially when, you're kind of late to start into stand-up, you don't really know what you're doing, why you're there. Like you don't necessarily, there's a lot of young people doing stand-up. So I'm a little bit older, but being able to get that kind of vote of, confidence, it keeps you going.
And then, so you done a first place, so that means you was on stage performing in the theatre?
Oh, for which one?
For Blurred Life.
Oh, Blurred Life. No, not
So
yet.
was that,
but
okay.
For that one, that was I think the first or the second grant I got last year. So I'm in an artist residency under Ottawa Fringe. And what that means is I get access to Arts Court as a place to work and develop a play that I wrote. So I wrote my first play in 2022. It's a 1-act monologue, and I submitted it for consideration for this artist residency. And they picked it. And so what it is, it's like sort of part storytelling, part stand-up, because there's some darker material. It's kind of autobiographical, and talks about some strong Caribbean mother figures in how So I love it because, again, the same way I didn't think of myself as stand-up comic at the beginning, I didn't think of myself as someone who would ever be writing a play. And here I am finding different ways to connect with an audience. Yeah, so I get to work on it. So that's going to be my big project after March, going and focusing on getting this play solid so I can put it in front of an audience eventually.
Okay, and then in summer 2024, Blurred Life, so was selected as one of 5 projects.
Yeah, exactly. So I was really, really grateful for the opportunity because it's expanding a whole other creative opportunity where I can be funny, because I really believe you can be funny about anything, and these topics are a little bit more sensitive. So it's going to be really cool to explore humor in that space.
Okay, and in summer 2024, like you were accepted for an Anticipate 2024 project grant.
Yeah, and that's
like that?
that was also blew my mind because that is what's partially funding the project, the show that I'm doing at the end of March. Yeah. So it's self-financed in a lot of ways, and then also with that grant, but it's also recognition from the artistic community that the project seemed like it's something that would draw an audience that would be successful. And of course, as part of applying for any grant, you have to report and explain what you've done. So I'm looking forward to that part too.
Yeah, because to get a grant is really hard out here. So do you feel like the process was very difficult, or was it like did you put a lot of effort into it?
You know what? It took me years to be able to get the confidence to apply for a grant. And one of the things that helped were some of the programs I signed up for before. So there's, and I'm going to butcher the name, but it's the acronym is MACCAM, MAC-ICAM, and they had a whole bunch of grant writing clinics last spring, geared toward artists to explain and demystify the grant writing process. So they had people from the city of Ottawa come in. They had workshops about budgeting and just even what you need to write and what you need to focus on, because as artists, not all of us are artists with words. So it was really, really helpful. So I was not even finished that program when I applied to those grants and then got those grants. And I was just like, oh, okay, I can do this.
So I know you've been doing stand-up comedy for 8 years. So have you always been born to be a stand-up comedian, or there's something that you had to practice and you just, ooh la la, I'm a stand-up comedian?
Oh, it's such a weird, crazy story because I always thought, I'm the kind of person who's just funnier off stage. So I'm in my kitchen, I'm, cracking jokes, and I was in Toastmasters, the public speaking club, and I was trying to I work in communications, that's my day job, and I was trying to make it hard to be fired, And so I thought, as a communications person writing with words, what if I could get really good at public speaking and have that as another skill? But then I'm doing these speeches, and then I found that I was accidentally funny. I was being able to connect with an audience. I had a strong speech, but I had humor in different places that connected. And then I was just like, I want to know how to be funny strategically. How do I write a joke? And so so I can put it wherever, and plan to put it. And then in one of my networking groups, a local comic was having these workshops for moms. Like there weren't a lot of women in stand-up comedy locally at that time. And I thought, okay, maybe I should sign up because there's joke writing in there. And there was also 5 minutes performing at Yuck Yucks. And and I was just like, oh, I don't really want the performance part. I just want the joke writing. I'll just like bail on the performance. But as soon as the date got closer, I was just like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to be on a stage. And so I ended up just doing it. Like I wrote the jokes, I practiced the jokes, got feedback, and then I showed up and did the Wednesday night, 5 minutes or whatever it was. And I didn't want to get off that stage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was
Got introduced to it.
Yeah.
So what made you like get inspired to continue becoming a stand-up comedian?
Oh my goodness. The more I learn about how stand-up works, the more I love it, because there's a lot of problem solving. Every time you do it, you're in front of a different audience. Like you can be in the same place, in the same venue, but the audience is always different. So you're always figuring out the problem about how to connect with them. So, and then I love that sort of like, okay, this joke didn't work, why? Let me tweak this joke, make it better, let me write some more. And I've got like, I must have written at least like 400 different parts of jokes, not complete jokes, but different pieces. So it appeals to me as a writer, but also appeals to me as someone who wants to connect to an audience.
To the audience.
Yeah.
Okay. And was there like anything like in the process of becoming a stand-up comedian? Is there anything that's made you feel like, or is everything just been like, yeah?
Oh man, yeah. There's lots of things to kind of make you hesitate because at the beginning is initially supportive, but as I was going, I just kind of it became clear that I'm a black woman doing this thing, and I'm not everyone's cup of tea.
Okay, just stopping there. I want to say you look so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
The brown is very caramelized.
Oh, thank you.
Hair as well as sleek. I can see natural hair, dread, and plus there's curliness in it.
Yeah,
so
what's like? Who inspired you behind your swag and your look? Was this
that's a
always
good
your look,
question.
or did you have to change your look?
Oh, I had to change my look as I was going. There was a fantastic woman on Instagram, an influencer, and I can't remember her name, but she was the first one I saw with these silver locks, and I was just like, I love this. I love like the ease of it because for me, I never learned how to braid properly, and I was always like relaxing and straightening, and that's not always like manageable over the long haul. And so I was just like, okay, I need something that is like easy to maintain, and then for me, like this is it. So I'm kind of growing my natural hair to match it, but my natural hair is like the same color. But when it's long enough, it's gonna be this thing that happens. Because right now it's like my natural hair is like.
Yeah. I started as well. My dread like life just about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations.
So, I actually just retwisted it for the first time, but I did plaits and I left it.
Nice.
And if you just do plaits and you leave it, it just becomes locked.
Yes.
So I like the journey. I feel like it's it's good to have like a natural feeling, know who you are.
Yeah.
And it's so unique,
Unique,
Yeah.
Because you can still do a lot with it with dreads as well.
Oh,
You can
totally.
tie it up, you can
Yeah.
tie it and do a lot.
Yeah, I love that look because it's so expressive.
Yeah, very expressive.
Yeah.
Okay. And
What are the best strategies for memorizing like your scripts? Like, do you script it or is it improvised?
That's a really good question because at the beginning I thought like memorizing it, but then this is the thing, it's less of a memorization because that's more theater and more of a conversation. So when I go to a space, I can kind of walk in, have an idea of what I want to say. But sometimes, if you think of it as like a deck of cards, I shuffle the deck sometimes. Like I just went to a high school to do a Black History Month, like a clean set for them. And then depending on how they responded, I kind of shuffled the jokes and used some jokes and didn't use others. Like, they kind of cringed at one kind of nerd joke and I was just like, okay, no more nerd jokes. They're all gone. But it was just like, it's really neat. So it's really important, like for stand-up, to be in the moment, because if the audience does something funny, you got to react to it, maybe pull a different joke. But yeah, it's less memorization and more sort of like feel. So you can practice what each joke is like, and know your material, but then be prepared to shuffle, be prepared to make a joke on the spot about what's in front of you, because then the audience can see it and relate. Yeah, because the worst thing I've ever seen as a fan of comedy is being in a room. I saw this like really big name comic up on the stage doing their thing, and I was really looking forward to it. But then someone in the back of this club drops an entire tray of glassware. Like it was silent because the person was building up their joke, you know, and so everyone heard this big crash. So the comic up on the stage just pauses and then continues. I'm like, you're not even going to talk about that? Like, no. Like he didn't make a reference to it, and I was just like, oh, okay, so I'm watching theater. This isn't stand up, and I was so disappointed.
Okay. And obviously, how do you come up with your new material?
Oh, that's a good question. I think anything can be funny. Like my favorite thing is like coming up with a bunch of topics, like in 2 columns, and just trying to compare and contrast, and just like, you know, like coming up with stuff that way. I started doing a workshop for some other comedian friends because as part of my practicing and thinking about this play I'm working on. And so I had, like, it just happened, the last one happened yesterday. So I had this bucket of prompts, and so the warm-up we had was just starting off with rants. So this one thing is like things to rants are basically things that you can complain about. So pull out a topic from a bucket, something's written on it, and you go off, and that's a joke. So
I love workshops like that. So my background is I do stand-up comedy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I've been doing stand-up comedy, you know, for let's say maybe about similar 8 years, I'd say. I loved that workshop. I did that workshop in the UK. You know when like they'll put stuff in a hat and then you pick out. It's fun as well because it's very talented because you're improvising as well.
Exactly.
And real stories.
Yeah. And I mean, it builds so much muscle, and then you can't prepare, and then it reminds you that you've got all of the stuff you need to come up with it. So it's not even about writing it and memorizing it. It's about sort of like, okay, you've got this premise, respond to it. And then as you're responding to it, you might instinctively grab a structure of a joke and then put something around it. And I found that it's what happened when I picked something out of the bucket. I just went and like ranted, and then I was just like, oh wait, I got to record myself because I'm using these as jokes. And
sometimes you just there's so much things that happen. You'll be like, you're gonna have to use it in your stand-up comedy. For me, example. Why I love stand-up comedy is because for me it's like a medicine. Every bad situation I turn it into a good situation.
Exactly.
I actually feel like I do go through a lot of bad things, but it's actually there's always a funny thing out of it.
For me, like a lot of it comes like from real life too, because I'm also a mom. My kid is 13, and so I one of my jokes that I really made the audience cringe at the high school was I was talking about when my son found out I was the tooth fairy. And so, like, you know, it was just sort of like material for days, right? But then I thought, oh, I don't want to just write about being a mom or a nerd. I want to write about all this other stuff too. So I wrote about I have a joke about the Black Panther movie, and you know, like just like opinions, like how I'm perceived, that kind of thing. So I think anything can be put in a joke.
I talk about the animals in Canada. Oh my gosh, there's so much animals, the raccoons, because we don't have that in the UK. So I compare like Canada to like the white version of Africa, like undercover, because you know there's so much animals. Like literally, I see like raccoons. I've never seen a raccoon before.
Oh man.
There's like badgers. The squirrels are black.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Even
like squirrels are brown.
Brown.
Yeah, like brownish, gingerish, ginger.
Oh,
So
like in Montreal. I think I saw a couple like that, like in Quebec.
So I'm very superstitious as well. So imagine me seeing a black squirrel for the first time. I was thinking, oh my gosh, what is this here? So I love stand-up comedy. And how do you know if a joke is going to work or not?
Oh, I don't. I think that's the hardest thing, because that's one of the reasons why I decided to set up that practice group that I'm doing. Because
I want to attend, please.
yeah, I was just going like, okay, got to send you the coordinates.
Yeah.
Because like because when I'm at home by myself and writing, it's too easy to listen to the internal monologue, kind of like, oh, this isn't good enough. Got to do this instead. Oh, this sounds, trite. But with people, around, you throw it out, and other people can give you their initial perceptions or their tags, their suggestions, their feedback, and then it's easier and more natural, I think, to write like that.
Yeah, very natural.
Yeah.
And do you test your material before the show? Or is there sometimes you just like, okay, the first time, or last minute things you don't have enough time?
Yeah, I sometimes have things. Like I had this one joke, I used it at the Black History Month event, but I wasn't happy with it. I wasn't happy with how it landed, and I brought it to the workshop yesterday, and I basically said, okay, this is what I said. There's something wrong with it. What's wrong with it? Like, tell me. And so I'm going to tweak it again based on the feedback that I got. But sometimes you don't know. But part of being in the moment and having that conversation is to see what hits and what doesn't, and to pivot. So even if you're pivoting in the moment, you're supposed to have some back pocket jokes, so that if that doesn't work, you try something else and see what they laugh at. So if they're not laughing at other things, and they're maybe like they want edgier material, then maybe you have an edgier joke, you can throw it out there, and then, or even like in best case scenario, a whole bit, related to what they're reacting to the best, and you serve them up that.
Okay.
But I think that's kind of like it gets easier once you build up the muscle memory. Like that's my ultimate goal, because I'm not there yet either. But just kind of like building it up and just being able to walk into a room like I saw one comic do, and basically take a look at the entire crowd. And this is before he even went on the stage. He walked in and he noticed there's this demographic here, this cultural background here, and then he knew where he was going to shuffle his jokes, and then he was ready. And I had a conversation with this comedian after he'd gone up, and I was just like, wow, that is brilliant. Yeah, that was like Sterling Scott, after he had performed in Orleans at a brewery, and I had a chance to ask him, about how he tailors his set to the audience, and he had described that, and I was just like, wow, that's brilliant. I want to get to a point where I can do that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have backup bullet points in your pockets?
Oh, that makes me nervous when I have paper. Because then if I'm looking at it, then I feel kind of like disconnected, or that I'm trying to find my place. So I find that it's almost easier for me to kind of go in and jump into the deep end of a pool, that kind of feel, rather than paper. Because once I have a paper in it, I get so nervous.
Oh wow, for real? So you actually will go on set with no backup?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do
cool,
now,
though.
because the other one,
That's
I
talent.
noticed that nervousness, I was just like, oh, what's happening? And I was like, it must be the paper.
Okay.
Yeah,
so you're able to flow, even though if you forget something, you're able to
not well. It doesn't always go well.
Okay.
But what I find more comfortable than bringing the piece of paper. And then there was an acting class that I had taken over the pandemic online, where it suggests not, you kind of have all of your text there. You kind of feel the flow of the text of what your material is, and then you kind of imagine it like rungs on a ladder. So you kind of know one thing leads to another and leads to another, but you're not bound to it. Like you can move things around. So stepping away from memorizing content frees us.
Okay. So who are your biggest influences and favorite comedians, and why?
Oh, that is a good question. I find it changes depending on my mood. Like Wanda Sykes is up at the top for sure. I also love Leanne Lord. Actually, I should probably say why I like Wanda Sykes. Wanda Sykes is very sharp, snappy, clever, fast. And her act outs are excellent. I also love the fact that she's an older woman doing this work. It makes me happy and inspired to see it. Leanne Lord, I saw Leanne Lord's clips from Def Comedy Jam back in the day. Also a little older, but also kind of a nerd. So she wears this necklace that has a Star Trek pendant on it all the time. And I got a chance to see Leanne Lord in some of the same online spaces, online comedy spots that I was in. And I was just like, oh my God. Like I felt like just in awe.
Yeah.
And then I've got tickets to go see Sarah Millican in September on my birthday. So I'm really excited about that. I like a sharp, fast, and also she's just like potty mouth. So you don't expect that she's going to be, like have content that goes opposite how she presents herself. So that's kind of like, it's always nice to surprise an audience. So I think that's cool. I think there's also, I like sometimes being surprised by comedians I've never heard about.
So new comedians and stuff?
Yeah, because sometimes YouTube serves up new comics. There's one, and I can't remember what his name is, but he's like a white man from the South, and he's referring to the current politics in his material, and he's progressive. Like, it's just sort of like you're kind of expecting that he's going to be having one set of politics, but he flips it and gives something else. And I was just like, wow, that's really cool. Josh Johnson is great too, but I think he's more storytelling to me than stand-up. Yeah.
Okay, cool. My one is obviously Kevin Hart. He's okay. I mean, I like more of his movies. He can get corny sometimes.
Yeah.
And my favorite of all time, why I feel like I became a stand-up comedian, was Monique.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was my original because obviously she's big, and then her jokes were, very relative. And she's very strong. She's always having like problems around, but she's still solid and she's still here.
Yeah,
and I
she's
like
so
her growth.
authentic and real.
So authentic and real, And do you like collaborating with other stand-up comedians?
Yeah, like this workshop series that I've started is really inspiring. I was really so excited about this last one. I had trouble sleeping because I was just like, okay, I want to make shows. I want to make shows, invite them to perform, and it was just wonderful. But it was really. Yeah, it's nice to be able to speak to people who understand the craft and understand the challenges, especially if they have something in common with you, and then they can give you different perspective on a challenge that you might be facing.
Okay, can you recall a time when an audience reaction completely surprised you, positively or negatively?
Oh, that is a good question. I find that they surprise me all the time. Like the high school students surprised me because I thought I enjoyed hearing my 13-year-old cringe out when I say things, kind of awkwardly on purpose. But it was a whole other level of satisfying to hear an entire audience from grade 7 to 12 kind of go, oh! When they were taking the side of my kid in a joke where I was saying he's not allowed to go to certain malls by himself. And they were like, okay.
Unfair.
That makes sense though. Nowadays, thank you. I'm gonna actually put that in my rule book because these malls out here are just crazy nowadays, especially in Ottawa. Yeah. And how do you feel about the use of social media to promote comedy?
I think it's really nice. There is a trend where a lot of comedians are using crowd work in their trends. I think that kind of takes away from stand-up. I think it lowers expectations of audiences, or it gives them, not lowers expectations, more like gives them an accurate impression of what to expect when they go to a comedy show. So when a comic is posting up clips of just audience sort of like acting out, that kind of behavior is frowned upon in a club because comics have material they want to share. They don't want to keep talking to the loudest person in the front row all the time. So it kind of it's challenging. Also, it makes sense though that some comics use it because they don't want to give away their jokes. They don't want to put their jokes out there for free and then they walk off and someone's using them somewhere else.
Okay. Have you ever been upset after a performance if a performance has gone wrong?
Not so much, and it helps me because I'm an introvert, so it doesn't really touch me if someone doesn't like it. I think the things that bother me the most is if I have actual family in the audience. And then that means if they don't like a joke, that means conversations afterward. But one person kind of going, I don't like this joke, or
you're supposed to be the most supportive there.
Exactly. So it's easier for me to deal with stranger reactions than reactions from people who know me well.
Okay, so what are the secrets for telling, what's your secret with because I feel like everyone should have a secret tool in the stand-up comedy. Do you have a secret tool to know that, okay, I'm going to ace this? So is it your
yeah.
eating? Is it your? Do you have any prayers or what more? Like what is your secret?
Yeah. Usually on a performance day, I work on my mindset because I'm one of these people. Maybe I don't know if it's because I'm an introvert, but sometimes I'm in my head a lot. So getting out of my head helps. So exercise, definitely water. Stay away from I can't remember which comedian also had written that they do this, but I stay away from alcohol or anything that will sort of like dry me out, no caffeine, like reduced caffeine, but lots and lots of water, steam, vocal exercises. So I try to like warm up my voice when I can, so that it's easier to get more expressive, like those big expressions. Exactly, all of that. And then what else? So I like qigong a lot. So qigong is like slow moving tai chi, where you sort of like release tension, or yoga if I have time. I guess being able to sort of like set things up that I'm not rushing. Because if I'm rushing out of the house, as you know, like as a mom, you're kind of, we put ourselves last sometimes. Yeah. So I have to create those buffers so that I can sort of like be present and mindful and not like freaking out when I'm having to get ready for a gig. Yeah.
So do you see the difference with someone trying to write a joke or someone trying to develop a stand-up comedy material? For example, like my husband stresses me out all the time. Like he tries to make the most silliest joke and then he will be like, "Oh, you're supposed to be a comedian though." I'm thinking, but I'll give the jokes. Like, so do you feel like there's a difference with like someone just doing any jokes like or developing in a stand-up comedian material, or do you think they're similar?
Oh, it depends. I think it depends on if the joke that they're offering is funny. Okay. As I know some people who are like always messaging me saying, "Hey, you can use this in your skit." Okay. And then I was like, no, because that's not me. Okay. But I think that when people are, I guess it depends on who's writing it, what it's for. I like to kind of focus on stuff that I build, or that because I think jokes are important to tell you something about the comedian who's presenting them. Okay. So that I feel that when I go up on a stage, the jokes that I share are different than what another black female comedian in my age bracket would offer, because we're different. If your goal is to headline in a comedy club, there's a different strategy involved there. But it depends on what your level of success is and what your milestones and objectives are.
Okay. So, how do you balance humor with staying true to your own voice and values?
Oh, that's a good question. That's why I've been wrestling with that this year. Yeah. So I think it's a lot of asking myself what it is that I want. Like, for example, I don't think that I want to be a headlining club comic, because that requires a lot of time that I'm not ready to take away from my family at the moment. Okay. What's important to me is going to speak to certain audiences. I know that there's a lot of people who come to see my shows who aren't used to seeing a lot of people like me in comedy clubs. So I want them to be in spaces where they can get comedy that they enjoy, hear from different kind of comedians that they might not see at their local comedy club, and to understand that stand-up comedy is also for them. Because when I started, for example, like 8 years ago, someone said that I was the only black woman doing amateur stand-up comedy in Ottawa, and I thought that was ridiculous. Gosh, it's huge. But, I just kind of thought, that's not okay. And then I found that there were lots of people, like at Carlton, there was this one producer doing a series called Spice, and every single one of their shows was sold out. Yeah, and they were doing Happy Goat on Laurel Avenue, and I think Chalmers, the entertainment center downtown. But they were selling out shows, but I never saw them. No, I saw them once in a local stand-up comedy place, but meanwhile they had this giant audience that was showing up and supporting. So I want my work to reflect my values of community building, connecting people, and
apart from Lady Gaga, what black artists do you like?
Oh, that is a good question. I don't think I start with the black. I usually end up listening and catching the beat, and then I'm just like, hey, who sings this? And I just got the Shazam app, so that's been my friend.
Do you like Afrobeats?
I don't know the genre very well. I'm kind of like,
to get into it.
I totally do. Because the thing is, I'll listen to something and go like, oh, I really like this. And then be like, why didn't I hear about it? And it's like, oh yeah, got to listen to music.
Yeah. What's your background?
Oh, I'm born in the island of Dominica between Antigua and Martinique, and then I immigrated as a baby.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you all about the culture? Do you like the food? Do you know the food?
I
or
know
you
the
don't
food. My mom used to make a lot, but just like passing on the recipes and things, the same way that I didn't learn how to plait, the same way I didn't know how to cook a lot of the ground provisions and stuff. But I kind of developed a taste for like knowing, you know, if I try something, if I go to a Caribbean restaurant and they're making it, I'm just like, it's missing something. Oh, I'll do this part differently.
Yeah.
But that being said, Google is my friend when it comes to finding recipes. Because Google, I have this joke about Google teaching me how to make black cake.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever had black cake, but yeah, it's like
the Caribbean one.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks like a fruit cake.
Yeah, like puree everything, and then it's like has browning added to it, and it's like a pudding, I guess, because it's like cooked long and low. But yeah, Google taught me how to make that. Like I found a recipe and I was like, this is the recipe that my aunts don't share.
Yeah. So what's the funniest thing that's happened to you recently?
Oh my goodness. I think, the funniest thing that happened so far. I think pulling out that prompt from the rant bucket, I didn't realize how angry I was about, chats, like online sort of messaging boards where people use emojis and GIFs to instead of sentences. I was just like, I don't know if I'm Generation X, but like I did 5 minutes of rant about that. And I'm like, okay, I need to put this into a bit.
Okay, no problem. What's the weirdest thing? Has a fan ever told you anything weird or online or anything?
Oh my goodness.
And how would you handle any negative comments?
Oh, well, they didn't so much negative, but just inappropriate, like crossing the line. I remember I was just telling someone that I don't know if I can get away with something specific in a joke. And then this person stands way too close and they're like, oh, I think you can get away with a lot. I'm like, oh my God, where's the exit?
Yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna go into a little debate section. So
sure.
Obviously, we might agree on the same thing, and we might not. But this is just a whole topic.
Okay.
Okay, so yes, we're back. So, do you think men in the entertainment industry succeed more than women?
I think men in the entertainment industry. They're less hesitant. They're less likely to take themselves out of the game.
Okay. So what do you mean by that?
I think that men have a lot of confidence in the entertainment industry. And sometimes that confidence is not always well-founded. Yeah, I mean, to test that, you can go to any open mic and see that there's some really unfunny people who keep showing up.
Yeah.
And sometimes women, who have a lot of talent, just don't think that they're good enough for whatever reason. And they're in my observation, it seems that a lot of women are more likely to sideline themselves rather than, to go for it and let other people tell them to, that it's not right for them.
Okay, because I know I haven't really experienced it yet, but I just see a lot of females complaining in industry saying that they get paid less and men get paid more. I'm not sure if that still happens now.
I don't know about stand-up, but I know that in a lot of other industries there is a wage gap for sure. For stand-up, I think knowledge is power for anybody. So if you're a woman in stand-up, it's important to know your worth. And if you aren't being valued, then it's important to figure out what your options are so you can go elsewhere.
Okay. And some people will say that comedians are clowns. Do you agree or you disagree?
It depends, because there's lots of different styles, and I know some comedians who are clowns, literally, they're going through clown training.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the style, because there's a lot of deadpan comics. One of my favorites locally, she'll go up and she'll be just deadpan delivery, and it was just it just kills me. It's just hilarious, but it might not work for someone else.
Okay. And is lying your way up better than being truthful?
Oh, I doubt it, because I think eventually the lack of authenticity will catch up with you, because a lot of the way that stand-up comedy works is about connections, networking, relationships building, and if people, and people talk. So if people are lying and can't be trusted, then other people will absolutely find out.
Okay, and if you could steal one joke from another comedian and claim it as your own, would you?
Oh my goodness. Milton Berle, ancient times,
Yeah.
had a whole book of stuff that he stole from other comedians, so I think he's due. People should steal from him.
If you could rewrite history of a joke, which historical moment would you choose and what would be the punchline?
Oh my goodness. I look forward to looking back and finding current politics as, really ripe, pickings for making comedy. I think I want it to become fade into history, and then we, get some normalcy back, so we can just, it won't be so real,
Yeah. And should all political debates be turned into comedic roast battles? Like, convince me this would improve the situation.
Oh, I think it would make the situation worse. I think comedic roast battles and reality TV brought us where we are now, unfortunately.
Yeah, that'll be like a back and forth. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, can you imagine Donald Trump doing like a big debate with, I don't know, like a big comedian?
Oh, I can't imagine Donald Trump speaking in full coherent sentences. Yeah. So we'll see.
And him, he's slyly a stand-up comedian. The type of things he does, like we made a song about they eating the cats and they eating the dogs.
Oh, I did hear that one. Yeah.
And is it ever okay to make fun of sensitive topics, or is it always off limits? Because with comedy, that's a very, I'll go on stage, I'll be like, I'm always like shocked at the type of things people say.
Yeah. Well, I'm the kind of comedian, like in principle, I think people can make jokes about anything, but whether people should, that's another argument. And I think it's important for comedians to speak truth to power. So if people are going to make jokes, you don't punch down if you can help it. So basically, you make fun of people like Donald Trump. You don't make fun of the people that he's putting into depriving rights of, because I think there's some responsibility when you are a stand-up comic, because you have a mic, you have attention. Yeah. So don't use it to be a bully or a jerk.
Yeah, don't be a bully or jerk. That's true. And like racism should be out of the plays, and
Oh yeah, I mean it's just like there's so many things we can do with our creativity. I mean, why do that?
Yeah. And is it possible to make fun of yourself too much, or is it like self, humor?
I think there's a fine balance. I've been to shows where people have made fun of themselves, and it's so cringy that you're kind of worried for the comic. Yeah. Like it's just kind of like, oh, is that person okay? But I think that sometimes if it's balanced and the audience isn't worried for the comic, then it's it's safe to do that.
Okay. And in the future, would robots replace comedians? Convince me why they either will or will not.
I don't know.
Remember this now, because the AI is taking over now.
Oh yeah. I think if since I've never seen ChatGPT get all of their facts right, I have a hard time imagining that they can get humor right. Humor is really like there's some nuanced pieces to it. I don't think ChatGPT understands nuance quite yet.
Yeah, not yet, right?
Nah.
Yeah. Talking about ChatGPT, like I just heard of it all of a sudden, and I kind of fell in love with it. Just the fact that, I can just put my resume and they change it up and that. But is there any disadvantage would you say you don't really like about it?
Yeah, I find that sometimes ChatGPT lies. So sometimes it's fun to play with, but like sometimes I asked it the history of Def Comedy Jam. I wanted it to summarize, and it told me stories that were not reinforced by Google. Like it was like Def Comedy Jam couldn't didn't have any success after the 90s because of this, and it told me a whole story that I couldn't validate. I couldn't find any sources to tell me the same thing that ChatGPT was telling me.
Yeah, you're right about that, because I did ask one question and it told me one thing, and I actually did a whole thing and sent it to somebody. Yeah. And then I asked the same question and then it told me different opposite. I'm like, I just flopped. Yeah. So it could put people into trouble. So we have to be careful with this AI situation.
Yeah, we can't trust it.
We can't trust it fully.
Yep.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So, will stand-up comedy be more important in the next 10 years? Or will social media comedy take over?
I think comedy, it will be more important to people because I think the role of art forms of any kind, especially in times like this where you have awful politics, dangerous politics, people can't say what they need to say.
Hi guys, we're here at CHUO 89.1 FM. I'm so happy to have the one and only Dawn
Xanklin.
Yeah, beautiful name.
Thank you.
And again,
Dawn Xanklin. Oh, sorry.
thank you so much. Like I said, I love her hair.
Thank you.
So please again, explain your next show.
Well, my next show is going to be a big show. It's at the Shankman Arts Center in East Ottawa, in Orleans. And it happens on Friday, March 21st. Doors open at 7 o'clock. Show starts at 7:30. We're going to have comedians from different parts of Canada talking about what it's like to be funny, talented, and black in the Great White North in Canada. So get your tickets. Tickets are moving fast. 70% sold out
already
as of today. So get them before they're gone.
You only got 30% more. Be the one to grab their ticket. Where can they join you?
They can find information and buy tickets on Eventbrite. So search up In the Black, a comedy show.
Okay. And what's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is a long one. It's at Dawn, DAWN, Xanklin, XANKLIN, comedy, all one word, on Instagram. So follow me.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.